Hey guys, what's good? Welcome to the fifth episode of Trash Talks. In this episode, I have a really special guest who's also an alumni of Christ University, who also turned out to be my senior. The man himself, driven differently, aka Chirag Joshi. Chirag is a person who hasn't taken up the usual path that we guys all do right after college. He hasn't taken up a 9 to 5 job, neither did he actually crave for a big salary, or neither did he actually crave for a stable life. He right now is working around the EV industry and he's trying to build a whole community. And right now he's got a setup community and he's got a really good community built on Instagram at the moment, like 1,500 followers, and he's putting out daily content on it regarding the EVs and how people have to be aware of EVs and how the whole ecosystem has to be built in India. Like it's kind of built in the other parts of the globe, but right now it's very important for us Indians to actually know about it. And he also is working on his own startup right now, which is going to start its pilot operations in the next 2 weeks. Am I right, Chirag?
Yeah, next week. Coming Monday, 2 days to go.
That's great. So, Chirag, before we starting off with our whole whole discussion about EVs and how it actually impacts the transportation industry and the automobile industry, like you doing all of this, like talking about EVs, enlightening people about EVs, sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge about EVs. 5 years down the lane, as like, what's your whole goal? Like you doing all of this, like what do you want to do in the next 5 years? Is it about making people aware about EVs, or is it you building a whole community around EVs and you want people to indulge in the ecosystem?
Okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank
This
you
is
so
great.
much.
It's great to be here. So I think it all started when I was in first year of college. This is in 2016. I was 18 years old. The aim has always been to build a business. I'm a guy who studied business. I'm a guy. I think I'm very attracted to the prospect of building a business because I think that's the best way in which we can. It's the most sophisticated form of human communication in which everyone gains. The customers gain, the investors gain, the people running the business gain, the employees gain. So it's a win-win, truly, if you really see.
Right.
So for me, business is the best tool that humans have created. So that's the reason I'm very fond of business as a concept and a tool to achieve anything that a person wants in life, right?
Like,
So that was.
Were you like pretty much about, like, were you mentally prepared that you don't want to take up a 9 to 5 job and you wanted to do a business right after college? Or was it like impulsive? One day you wake up and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to take up the 9 to 5 job. I'll just do something on my own, something really different. It was something like that, or was it like pre-planned before?
Well, it wasn't as much of hate towards 9 to 5. Like I don't hate 9 to 5. Okay, in fact, I do a 9 to 5. I do have a job, but again, it's I'm the founding member of the company. Whatever. So it wasn't out of hate for 9 to 5. When I was figuring out what I want to do in life, for me, it was very important to do work that I consider to be great work. And great work is only the kind of work that impacts a lot of people and makes their lives better. So for me, that was the bar. Okay. And I didn't want to settle for anything less. So that was pretty much it. I didn't confine myself to, I don't want a 9 to 5. I want to build a billion-dollar business. For me, that wasn't the driving factor. For me, it was, doing great work that impacts. I'm a person driven by impact. So the bigger the impact and the more positive it is, the better it is for me. So that's how I'm driven. And for me, it wasn't about, hating 9 to 5 at all. So yeah, that's how it pretty much began. And coming back to the whole EV story, for me, I started by building a business, wanting to build a business in this space. So as and when, I went ahead in my journey, I came across different things that allowed me to learn to be a better business person, to be a better entrepreneur, a better professional in this industry. So for me, the intention has always been to do the kind of work on the business side, to build a business that really allows people to shift or upgrade to sustainable ways of transportation, because we really need to, it's high time right now. And on the content side and on the social media side, it's to just build a community where, where my hope is that, I can involve people in the conversation around sustainable mobility.
Right.
That's a simple goal I have. I don't have too many high flying goals. My simple basic goal for my social media is to just get people talking and get them involved in this conversation, because I know even though I've dedicated my life, one person is not enough to, do such a big job. We need hundreds of thousands of people trying to work in this industry, trying to do something, trying to do their part. So I know that as well. So that's the reason I thought, maybe putting myself out there, maybe, just showing my journey in this industry will inspire hopefully one or two other people to do the same. And that will make all the difference, so the momentum, the collective efforts of all people is what is going to result in the end goal of, having as many people possible shift to cleaner ways of transportation. So that's kind of like the goal. So I don't really have 5-6 year goals as such that, okay, this is what I want to do. So I think in decade terms, so I mean, I've started my journey in home mobility this year. So I'm thinking, okay, you know what, 10 years I'm at home mobility, unless otherwise something really crazy happens,
Right.
But I think in decade terms. And so yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much locked in here at least till 2030, so I don't know what's going to happen after that. So I don't worry too much. I'm focused on the here and the now.
Right. That sounds great. That's so like diving down into the topic, like as I already mentioned while starting the whole thing. Now, if you've seen around, if you've gone to the other countries, if you've seen other countries, like electric vehicles are pretty much prominent on the roads. Like you can see a good number of electric vehicles on the road. But when it comes to India, like you don't actually see only a handful of electric vehicles. Like there's Ather Energy, which is like a really good company, which is like properly built right now. They're expanding. That's there. And there are few cars from Mahindra, and there are cars from a couple of companies too. Like putting all of this into perspective and taking all of this into consideration, like what do you think is the scope of electrical vehicles in India? Now, Elon Musk has said that he's going to roll out Tesla in the year of 2021. But looking at the current situation, looking at the pandemic, and looking at how people are actually educated about EVs and its ecosystem and how it works in India, I don't think 2021 Tesla is going to come to India, or he's going to roll out cars in the Indian market. What's your whole take on this?
So I mean, Tesla has been trying to enter the country for quite some time now. They're facing some issues with the Indian government in terms of the import taxes that we put on sort of cars made outside the country. So that's been the big struggle for Tesla, and they're also trying. I mean, I don't know if they're trying to build a gigafactory here, but that's the big problem, because after the Indian government puts the tax, their cars no longer become affordable. They're very high priced then, and that's what they don't want. They want mass market cars, right? So that's been the big problem. Answering the question about if they're going to come in 2021 to India, I'm still skeptical, because even if they do, they won't really see. India is a very different country, okay? How you started out the question, that there are substantial number of vehicles out there in some countries. Nothing at scale anywhere in the world, which globally the penetration of EVs is still 1% or less, same as in India. But India is a very different country, what works here is something super different. So here the approach of what Tesla has taken, which is to build a very high price super car and then bottling it down to mass market car, is the approach that they've taken. So that's a top down approach to EVs. In India, that approach won't work. In India, we need to have a bottom up approach.
That's what's my whole point.
Yeah, we need to that and that's actually true. So in India, what how it's going to actually kick off is very sort of cheap. No, I won't say cheap, but vehicles that are in direct use. Utility based vehicles, which is commercial vehicles. Yeah, whether it's an auto rickshaw, whether it's a Tata Ace kind of a vehicle, whether it's two-wheelers for delivery. Commercial vehicle segment is where EVs will take off first, because there's an immediate need or pain point to be solved that EVs solve in the case of B2B, which is lowering operational cost of running a vehicle. Because any transportation business, you want to lower the operational cost so that your profits and revenues increase, right? So EVs give a immediate sort of relief in that scenario. So that's the reason they make perfect sense for a B2B scenario right now, and that's where it's going to kick off first. That's what we see from the industry as well, and I think it's pretty true. So B2B is the area where EVs are going to hit off first in India. So again, that's a bottoms up approach, right? I mean, you're saying sort of not really fancy vehicles being EVs first, and then that sort of building up to maybe private vehicles. And I think private four-wheeler vehicles is the last segment that EVs will kick off, because that's a much premium segment, and the technology and the vehicles coming out need to be, at a certain quality level and also a certain price level. And for that to be achieved, it's going to be some time. It won't happen very soon in our country. But otherwise, B2B, I think it's catching on. So that's the basic difference between India and other countries.
Since you're talking about commercial vehicles being the first ones to adopt electrical vehicles in India, now taking that fact into consideration, now companies like Nikola, the competitor of Tesla, has rolled out with his own truck, and whereas Tesla has also rolled out with his own truck. But there are not a lot of companies who actually are into commercialization of EVs, right? Now, if you see companies like Tesla, they're only concentrating on private vehicles. But whereas they have to change their approach, right? Like how do you think they have to take the changes when they're targeting the Indian market?
Yeah, I mean, again, Tesla in the Indian market, I mean, I don't know if they have any product that suits our market yet, because all of their vehicles are very premium priced, you know. And I mean, a few people will buy it, sure, but at the kind of scale they want with their current product line, I don't think so they'll be able to match that scale, because even the lowest price car, which is the Model 3 or maybe the Model Y, that's also $35,000. That's US. So when it comes to India, you have that whole 150% or 100%.
Yeah, it's like 70 lakhs approx something on road something.
Yeah, so no one's buying a 70 lakh car, and that's by no means affordable in the Indian context.
Exactly.
So kind of products won't really work in India even if they come. So maybe they'll have to build something else, and I don't know what that will be, but it has to be something else.
Okay, all right. So since we're talking about price, and when it comes to India, EVs being like on the premium side, like leave outside Tesla, in general I'm speaking, like EVs are kind of on the premium side. Do you think that EVs are actually overpriced, or are they worth every penny that the companies actually sell it for, is my whole point.
Is this in the Indian context?
In the Indian context, yes, and you can even just target the global this thing too. Now see, at a $35,000 price, you can put a BMW outside India. Now, why would someone leave the badge of a BMW or a Merc and shift towards Tesla? Like, okay, Tesla is a good brand. It is pretty much recognizable outside India. Now, everyone knows, okay, it's Elon Musk's company. But this brand of vintage, like, okay, fine, I drive a Merc, I drive a BMW. Why would someone leave that and actually spend the same amount of money on a electrical car? Number one. Number two, it's that, do you think they're overpriced? Is my whole point.
Okay. Yeah. So number one, I mean, the reason someone will choose a Tesla over a Mercedes or an Audi today is because number one is savings, man. I mean, like, even if you buy a $35,000 Audi or BMW, you're going to forever pay for its fuel, and its fuel prices are not cheap, right? So you're never going to recover a cost of the asset per se. But if you buy a Tesla, you have a chance at actually breaking even maybe in 2 to 3 years if you drive it well, you know. So you'll actually cover the cost of your vehicle, which is unheard of in the current scenario. You can't recover the cost of a vehicle because you're going to spend in petrol or diesel or fuel in a matter of 1 or 2 years, which is to the tune of the vehicle itself. So you'll probably spend $35,000 in fuel in a matter of 2 to 3 years. Who knows, right? I mean, you never break even. So that's from an economical perspective. From the other perspective is that, you know, it's clear now to everyone that electric vehicles and clean transportation is the future and is the more modernized, is the new world. So people would want to choose an EV over a conventional car because they want to identify as futurists, or, you know, people who believe in the future and, you know, want to set themselves apart than the rest. So people who are these early adopters, for their status and for their own ego, they're much better off choosing a Tesla. If they're choosing an EV, they'd like to choose a Tesla. I mean, you know, they're pretty much synonymous with high-priced premium because they know their shit. They've been doing this for 20 years now, right? So they wouldn't want to go to a Audi or a Mercedes, no matter how big brands these are, but they wouldn't want to trust their EVs over Tesla, is what I feel. So that's the reason. These are two reasons why people would go for a Tesla over a conventional Mercedes, BMW, etc. That's number one. Number two is, are they overpriced? So again, now I'll come to the Indian context to answer that question. See, yes, upfront right now EVs cost a little more because of the price of the battery. You know, I mean, we haven't hit scale yet. So the price of the battery is still high. It has come down in the past 5 years. It has come down very significantly. But we're still, still at that inflection point, and we're at the point where it's starting to make commercial sense. That's why a commercial sector is where EVs will kick off first, because
Right.
the economics have started to make sense. Because in commercial segment, what happens is, the asset is used at a much higher rate. In private, not much, right?
Right.
So it's starting to make sense there. And that's the reason they're expensive. So are they overpriced? If you look at it from an ownership perspective, and ownership does not mean just the first day you pay the price. It means at least a 5-year bracket if it's a 4-wheeler, or if it's a 3-wheeler, if it's a 2-wheeler, it's at least something like a 3 to 5-year bracket that you'll own the vehicle. So if you see that, the total ownership cost after 3 to 4 to 5 years, an EV is much cheaper than a petrol vehicle even today, both in the B2C and B2B segment. So yeah, I mean, they are overpriced, but only upfront. But the operational cost of an electric vehicle is one tenth of a current vehicle.
Right.
So that's huge.
You're saving up at the end of the day. You're not paying for the petrol. You're not paying for the service or anything.
Yeah, but it's hard for people to imagine right now. And yes, there are some uncertainties in terms of the quality of the product, right? Like if it breaks down in 1 year, there's no point, right? But if it really lasts for 3 to 4 years, which we don't know because no Indian product has been there for 3 to 5 years, except Mahindra E2O. But again, that's gone by. So yeah, I mean, we're still, figuring out, is it worth it to spend that money or not? So yeah, I think we'll uncover these things, and it's too early to say anything. We'll know in the next 3 to 4, 5 years, when Ather becomes 8-year-old company and all of that. So we'll see. But this is how it stands today.
Okay. Since we are talking about EVs and shifting towards EVs down the lane, 5 years down the lane, 10 years down the lane, automobile companies have actually taken approach. Take an example, JLR. Now they're already announced saying that they're going to shift all their line and all their cars to completely electrical by the end of 2021 and 2022. What is your take on this? And do you think it's going to give a tough competition to Tesla? Is my whole point, is my whole question. Or Tesla or
Jaguar and Land Rover.
Yeah. Not Jaguar and Land Rover in particular, but every company that's shifting towards EVs right now. Porsche rolled up with its own EV right now. They're coming up with a model right now. Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, even Mini Cooper's coming up with its own electrical car that's coming out. So my whole point is that, so now Tesla is a really big setup company in the electrical vehicle industry. Now, is it going to face a backlash, or is it going to face a tough competition now once these companies roll out their EVs full-fledgedly?
Yeah. Number one, yes, of course, I mean, it's always healthy to have competitors in the market. Yes, Tesla will face competition, but honestly, it always wanted this competition because, when it started out, people didn't even care. All these companies were laughing at Tesla, right? So I think the fact that, these people are now their competitors is a big achievement for Tesla itself and for the EV industry, because these same companies 5-10 years back, they didn't even think about EVs that much, but now they are, and they're very seriously looking at it. So that's a big win just for the EV ecosystem, by the way. Now, will they be able to do it? So here's the thing about big companies. Okay, I think it's much harder for them to shift over to transition onto EVs than for newer companies, is what I feel, because these are companies who invest 3-4 years down in the future from a supply chain point of view, from manufacturing point of view. They plan that ahead, and they have their money already right therein. So for them to take out money from a place that will shortly, earn them money and put it into something that's still, in doubt and skeptical, and in some case, the whole industry is worth less than their annual revenues. It's hard for a big company to bet that much. So even though they might bet it, it's going to be 80-20 or 90-10, I don't know. So they won't be full in until and unless, and before they become full in, it's going to be a while. It's going to be 5-10 years easily, or at least 4 to 5 years for sure, for any of these big companies to 100% become electric truly, is what I feel. But again, smaller companies can do it faster, but the bigger ones, Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, all these companies, it's going to take them much more time. It's going to be much harder for them as well. So yeah, I mean, that's how it's going to be for them.
Okay. Now, do you think, like, since I've seen you talk about a lot of public transportation, you've spoken about the main reason why we are shifting towards EVs is because sustainability, sustainable use of vehicles, and the whole aspect of global warming and the whole aspect of harmful gases being released from petrol and diesel cars. Now, I've seen you speak a lot about public transportation and how it actually plays an important role in the building a community in the EV segment. Like how essential do you think is for a country to have a stable public transportation system, taking India into consideration, right? You've seen the Mumbai local train, you've seen the metros. How do you think it plays an important role in actually encouraging people to buy EVs?
Is a part of sustainable mobility. Okay. When I say sustainable mobility, it doesn't just mean cleaner fuel. It means shared transportation. It means also connected transportation. The automotive industry has been disrupted in 3 ways right now, not just one. So one is the shift from petrol and diesel to electric and cleaner ways of fuel. Second is from private ownership of vehicles to much more innovative ways of ownership, shared transportation, and that's where public transportation falls in that bit, where it serves people in a way that they don't require their own vehicles, which is great. And the third is our vehicles being much more smarter, being much more connected to the internet and all of that stuff. So these are the 3 big ways in which the automotive industry or the mobility industry is being impacted in. Public transportation falls under the second bit, which is shared mobility. So of course, I mean, it's simple math. If just imagine a road, right? If there are 85 cars and each of the cars have one person in it, and you can just imagine the kind of space it takes on the road, right?
Exactly.
85 cars is a lot of cars, right?
That is the main reason why a lot of cities are actually facing traffic issues.
They're congested and they're polluting, right? Exactly. I mean, the carbon footprint of just one person is massive in that. Exactly. But imagine these 85 people coming into one bus. First of all, the space just gets crunched by, I don't know, 1/100th of the original space, right? So bus is smaller than 85 cars lined up together, right? And the carbon emission from that one bus is much lesser than 85 cars polluting, right? So that's how public transportation plays a huge role. Now, a real world example of that is Bangalore city has around 1 to 1.2 crore population. That's our population, right? And the number of vehicles in this city is 80 lakhs. 80 lakh
oh my God.
Vehicles on Bangalore roads. Okay. This again pre-COVID and all of that. But anyway, that's the stat. Mumbai is a city that is probably 3+ crores of people in that city. And the number of vehicles on road in that city is for 40 lakhs. So half
oh my God.
of what Bangalore in number of vehicles, but almost more than, I mean, 3 times the number of people in the city, yet half the number of vehicles. And the big reason for that is the Mumbai local. The Mumbai local carries insane amount of people, and it serves everyone well. And if you have a Mumbai local, you don't have to think about anything because of the great connectivity it has. So that's the importance and the impact a good public transportation system can have, and that's why it's very important to have that. So yeah, that's the importance. I mean, if we just have good public transportation or shared transportation means in the country, we will just pollute less, and we will have less congested cities, and a much more efficient transportation system. That's how it helps.
Since we are talking about public transportation system and the whole thing that's going around right now, the whole pandemic going around, how do you think this is going to change post the pandemic? Like, do you think people will start buying more personal cars, or do you think they would still stick to using public transportation system? Like, taking Mumbai into example, you said that because of the Mumbai local train, the number of cars on the road is actually half when compared to Bangalore. Even the population is double the size of Bangalore. Now, after the things settle down and the pandemic gets over and people get back to normal, like, how do you think this is going to impact the whole public transportation system?
So, I mean, couple of things there. So, yes, of course, people will be not so comfortable going into crowded spaces. That's and it's for the better. I mean, we don't want people catching the virus. So of course that's going to be less. But on the other hand, there's a lot of other stuff that's also happening, which is work from home. It's such a big part now. I mean, people will just be stepping out less now. They won't need to go to office. They don't need to show up at office. So if I mean, a lot of Indian companies have announced, a lot of global companies have announced that they're going to do work from home forever, or at least a significant part of their work from home of their workforce will be working from home. And it's not they're doing some charity to people, they're actually saving money, you know. I mean, I
Exactly.
know companies that have turned more profit in the past 5 months than they ever have in their
Yeah,
entire
because
lifetime.
their
And that's
operational
simply
costs and
because
everything have gone down.
exactly they save on transportation of employees, they save on rent on the offices they take, they save on food, they save on so many factors, you know. So it's just a much more efficient system for businesses to run their business in a remote fashion. And I mean, we needed a pandemic for them to realize this, but anyway, they realized it. So if people aren't stepping out for work as much, that means that there's going to be just less use of transportation in general, you know, at least for to and fro from office. So there might be other ways of transportation, but at least the office going and coming thing will reduce drastically because people just won't step out. As for public transportation playing a role there, yeah, I mean, right now, buses, metros, local trains, I'm not sure what's going to happen. You know, they're still going to remain. Buses have started in some areas, but I mean, I don't know how you know low the ridership will be. As for people buying their own vehicles, that also thing I think won't happen because I mean because of the pandemic, the purchasing power has also gone down of people. I mean, they're not earning as much, right? So they wouldn't want to spend their money on buying a vehicle. And they, yeah, I mean, if they can't get out as much, why would they buy a vehicle, right? I mean, the whole so very a close cousin of transportation is travel, right? So now now travel, I mean, the travel industry, a lot of people, Airbnb CEO, Oyo CEO, a lot of people are saying that, you know, travel is going to change completely forever, which is, you know, people won't be traveling long distances now to explore places. More local traveling will happen. People will discuss, I mean, like as for Bangalore, people will start now moving more into, you know, closer places to Bangalore to chill and, you know, just to get away. And they'll discover more of these small places. So if that's the case, then, you know, I mean, then the need for travel will be different. They won't need to have cars. They can just do with bikes, or they can just do with the Zoom car rental, you know. You don't really need to buy a car to do that. So yeah, I mean, there's just multiple factors that affect what's going to happen to public transportation. But as of now, yeah, it's still risky.
Okay. Since we've been you added this aspect of you know, carpooling and, you know, sharing rides. Now keep the whole aspect of pandemic aside and the whole coronavirus thing. Now, how do you think? What is the scope of carpooling? I'm not talking about like Uber Pool or Ola Pool. I'm talking about apps like Quick Ride or Car
Quick
Share.
Ride, yeah.
Apps like this, and taking safety into consideration. Do you think like this is going to actually be a really good you know, it's going to come out and it's going to burst the bubble and it's going to be in the limelight in the next 2 to 3 years? Do you think something's going to happen like that?
If it wasn't for the pandemic, that would definitely be the case.
Okay.
But I think the pandemic had just a big impact that it's, you know, we just can't ignore its impact, because I think Quick Ride and companies like these are the biggest affected due to it. Because see, the whole concept of Quick Ride and all of that was, you know, that there's so much traffic, and that, you know, you have to bust your ass in it and you have to pay a bunch to just reach to your office, that, you know, you don't want to do that. And Quick Ride offers you a much convenient way of going and also helping reduce traffic, right? But now the whole thing of, first of all, the whole thing of going to office has just perished in a way, right? People aren't really traveling to office, as I just said, you know, less people, because everyone's working from home. Secondly, there is no traffic. So, you know, why will people carpool, right? You know, so the people won't really carpool now because they don't care about earning $50 extra a day and put their lives on risk. They won't. I mean, if I had a car, I wouldn't do that, right? I don't need 50 more bucks. And, you know, I don't want to land up in a hospital and pay 10K. So, I mean, savings, right? So, so that won't happen. And I mean, yeah, they're not going to be in the limelight in the next 2 to 3 years, unfortunately. So,
okay, right. So, okay, now coming back to EVs and we continuing the topic about talking about EVs. This news has rolled out today morning. I'm pretty much sure even you know about it. The Indian government has said that the company which actually manufactures an EV doesn't actually have to put out with the battery. Now, this is a really good thing for the customer because the price that he pays will gradually decrease down the lane. But do you think this is the back step for the companies producing it? Because at the end of the day, they are excluding the price of the battery. Now, if either selling a a moped or a bike at 1,30,000 or 1,40,000, now after this rule, now it's not mandatory for them to give the battery. the price might come down to below a lakh. Now, this is a kind of a backstep for companies, EV companies, right? Now, what is your take on this? And I've seen a lot of positive reviews since morning. I have read a lot of positive reviews. But one such review that has actually caught my eye was the Mahindra Electric CEO, Mahesh Babu, Mr. Mahesh Babu. He said that this might not actually work. This might actually, he was kind of against it. Like, what is the whole take on this whole that thing that's going on today?
I mean, first of all, I think it's a great move for the government to even acknowledge. I mean, come out and do this so early on in this industry, because again, we're so super small right now. So the fact that they heard the industry and passed this kind of a law is a great. Um, as to the fact, is it good or bad? I think number one, companies like Ather who are selling scooters with their batteries, of course, right now, will actually benefit from it. So I think it's to the benefit of the OEM, because right now the whole point is, people aren't buying these vehicles because the price is high. The initial price is so high that it puts people off. So the fact that Ather has an option to legally manufacture and sell scooters without the battery is a great thing. Now they can sell their scooters for much less. Of course, then the dependency is on what will happen to the battery. What will the battery leasing model look like? Will it be daily? Will it be monthly? Whatever. So there's going to be a lot of innovative battery leasing and selling models coming out. So that's actually a good thing, because that was already happening anyway. It was happening even before the government came out with this rule. I mean, battery swapping, battery, innovative bits of battery leasing, all of this stuff is anyway happening. All this law is going to do is even push it forward so that, companies are free to come up with innovative solutions. I think this law is not like the final sort of nail in the coffin in terms of like oh yeah, that's all. This is going to provide EVs the boost it needs. I don't think so. What it will is provide a safe space for companies to experiment with different ways of batteries and make electric vehicles cheaper and more economical to the end consumer. So I think that's what it's going to do, and I think that's a great move. So I don't know about Mahesh Babu's concern. I'm sure he has his concerns. He's trying to sell his vehicles, but I think he'll end up selling more vehicles. Again, yeah, there's a lot more stuff there, but I think that's part of the disruption, man. You can't really
exactly.
Like people who manufacture internal combustion engines don't sell petrol. So
exactly. You're right.
So I think it's part of that. So because it's a new industry, we're always caught up. Every time there's something new, we're always trying to compare it with what currently exists or what previously was, which is not the best way. But it's time we start learning and start behaving and reacting to how this current technology is and what the future of it will be. I think it's a great move. It's what, again, it remains to see what really happens, but I'm guessing it's going to be for the good.
Okay. Now, since what I have seen and what I've observed and with my analysis or my knowledge, now you can actually say that the electrical vehicles are somewhat have a niche market built. It's not for the mass market. Do you think the step that the government has taken is gonna bring down the niche market and it's gonna transform it into a mass market because the price is gonna fall down? Like more number of people will start buying this.
Again, could be. Depends on, I mean, again, what will people do if they can just buy the vehicle without the battery, right? It's great. It's a good first step, provided that the next step of battery leasing makes sense. Okay. I don't know what form it's going to take, but hopefully it takes some good form, and hopefully, my company can play some role in it, but I don't know what's going to actually happen. Will it make it mass market? I mean, the whole hope is to make it mass market. So I'm sure, this move will, as I said,
it might be a step closer to. It might be a step closer to.
I think so. I think it's a step in the right direction. It might not be a concrete step, but I think it's going to allow for good experimentation for companies without having to worry about government regulation, because half of the time the government is just coming in the way of innovation, and this time it's actually leading it. So people have a problem with it as well. So I don't know what people are trying to do. So I'm actually for it.
Right. Sounds good. So this one question that's been, batting in my head, and I've been, I'm actually surprised, and I actually wanted to ask you this question. So I've seen a lot of people, when they see an EV on the road, they're like, oh my God, that's an EV. Oh my God, that's an EV scooter. Like, how long until people actually start treating an EV as a normal vehicle? As in, like, they see a electrical vehicle on the road, like, okay, it's fine, a vehicle. It's not an EV. Like, how do they not get too excited looking at an EV. How long do you think that this gonna happen? Like where people start treating a normal electrical vehicle as a vehicle, but not an electrical vehicle.
So first of all, I mean, we're still in the part where I'd like them to get excited after looking at a vehicle, electric vehicle, you know,
Okay.
because if they don't care, that's bad. No, that's part of the reason I put out the content, because I want them to notice, oh, there's an electric vehicle and that's an option to buy, you know.
Okay.
So I think that's super important. That's the first step. I mean, unless millions of people become fanatics of EVs, I think it's some time before that. But I think I know where you're going with that question, which is, you know, when do EVs start becoming, you know, regular and a regular part of people's lives?
Exactly.
I think it's a natural transition, you know. Once enough people become excited about the idea of owning an EV, the next immediate step, or you know, the next immediate reaction of most people, because they're going to see so many EVs on the road, is going to start becoming comfortable with saying, you know, electric vehicles on the road. So I think it's a very you know, step one, step two sort of thing. It's not this versus that. So once more and more people become excited about it, which will lead to more and more people buying it, which will lead to more and more other people noticing more vehicles on the road which are electric, and you know, I mean, eventually becoming comfortable with the idea that, you know, EVs are moving around, and which will again, you know, force them to hopefully buy as well. So that's the natural progression of any technology. You know, the first time a smartphone came out, people lost it. There was this excitement that even I want to own a smartphone. Nowadays we don't give a fuck, you know. I mean, like, there's everyone has a smartphone, right? But that's basically the maturity of a particular technology, which EVs are not at. So if we reach that stage, that's going to be a good stage. But I think right now we just need to get them excited. Right now people don't give a fuck about EVs at all, so that's also bad, you know?
Okay.
Right now the first step is to get them excited.
Exactly. So before we wrap up today's discussion and we wrap up talking about EVs and the public transportation system, is there something you want to tell the people right now, like people who are, you know, getting down into starting you know, getting down into the EV industry, or you know, are taking up a different lane right after college? Number one. Number two, what is your final take on EVs, like coming to India, like the market share and everything? How would you wrap it up?
Okay, I mean, I think the first one, do I have a message for people? I think, yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's so here's the thing. Okay, so the automotive industry combined with the oil and gas industry is more than 100-year-old system. And this system, believe it or not, governs a lot of things in our lives. You know, I mean, the richest people in the world are oil and gas people. You know, the automotive industry and the transportation industry impact every other goddamn industry in the world, right? And here is a chance, once in 100-year chance, that we have for the first time as a generation to completely overthrow this current system and make it much more better for people, and actually, you know, design transportation in a way that the consumer is in the center of it, not something else. You know, I don't know what is at the center of the current companies, but actually people are at the center of it. And this is a very inspiring, you know, era to live in, because, you know, you just have the, imagine, you know, if you're being a part of this industry, you have the chance to probably create something that will that will change the way millions of people travel every day for the rest of, I don't know, for at least 40-50 years, you know, until it changes again. But you have that power and you have the opportunity to have that big of an impact. That's what drives me, you know. I mean, I have this opportunity to do this in the industry. That's what drives me. So if you're someone who likes impact, who likes massive impact and massive positive impact, I think this is the industry to be in. And I think you know, net your work is going to be positive for the world. Most things in life are debatable. I don't think the transition we're going through right now is debatable. It's inevitable, and of course it's sustainable. So you know, do consider, you know, joining this industry.
Exactly.
That's one. What's the take on EVs? See, EVs, I think what most people don't understand, I'm going to say a controversial thing right now, is EVs are not pollution free. They're only emission free. Okay. Manufacturing EVs just takes enough. Takes equal amount. Emits equal amount. Factories that manufacture EVs also emit greenhouse gases, right? They're not made out of, I don't know, flowers. That's not how it works, right? So they still pollute. But where EVs make a big difference is tailpipe emission. That, you know, that the tailpipe of a vehicle, where, you know, when the petrol combines with
Right.
fire and it propels. That part is where EVs play a huge role, because they emit zero.
Right.
They don't have any tailpipe emission because they run on batteries and electricity, right?
Right.
So EVs are zero emission and not zero pollution right now.
Okay.
But they represent a chance to make the entire supply chain of building a vehicle to be completely sustainable. So right now it's just the tailpipe emission, but I think already what's happening is people are figuring out how to dispose a battery in the best way possible so that we don't pollute, and which will just work against the agenda of sustainability. So there are people already working on that. We haven't hit scale, and people are already working on how do we dispose batteries in the most sustainable way. There are also people figuring out how do we manufacture vehicles in a way that is more sustainable, that we don't emit these many gases. So what you'll see is the entire supply chain, from sourcing the raw materials to build a vehicle right down to disposing the vehicle, will become sustainable. Right now it's just the vehicles themselves, the end product, but I think that's the first step towards end-to-end sustainability, what I call. And not just in our industry, because the transportation industry is such a huge industry. It will then have impacts on several other industries that will want to become sustainable as well. So I think the transportation industry and the mobility industry is going to play a similar kind of role that the computer and the internet played. They are going to be massively impactful even beyond their own industry, and change the way sort of humans live their lives forever. So that's how I think this whole thing is going to play out. Not immediately, it's going to take time, but hopefully in a couple of maybe 2 to 3 decades we'll start seeing signs.
Sounds right about perfect. So guys, as we come to the end of this episode, if you guys are, and if you're watching this episode, if you're listening to this episode, and if you're a big fan of EV, do go follow Chirag Joshi, aka Driven Differently, on Instagram. I'm going to leave all the details down in the description. And he has his own podcast called the Driven Different Audio Experience on Spotify, and he has his own YouTube channel. Go follow, guys. I'm going to leave every single detail in the description. Until next time, thank you so much, Chirag, for coming on my show. It's a really delight to have you on my show. Hoping that you'll be on a show once again sometime in the future. Until next time, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Chirag, for being on my show.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for having me.